Hey, this is Miles with the Warrior King, and today we're going to do a study that Elijah and I have been talking about doing for a while, and it has to do with self-control or self-discipline. And we wanted to go into talking about this because he and I have been having this discussion, and we're kind of trying to figure out, the different angles and different things that have to do with just achieving a higher level of just self-awareness and self-being. But as far as, as the scriptural concern goes into it, also, trying to figure out what makes us, draw closer to Yahweh, and also to draw closer to, being able to be, filled with the Ruach, as we call it, or the Spirit, as some people call it. But so he and I have been talking about doing this for a while, and so we've been starting to do some research where we're talking about doing something, and so that's what we're going to get into today. We're going to talk a bit about self-discipline or self-control, and how that is basically the key, the underlying key, pretty much the whole of Scripture, as far as we've been able to tell, and so hopefully with the study we'll do today, and I think as we go through this one, there's probably going to be more than one part to this, because this truly is, I think, the underlying factor with all of Scripture. Because it's truly the lack of self-control that's in the man where we are. So. And this is Elijah. He hadn't done a video with us yet, but hopefully we'll do a bunch more of them. And so kind of give a brief rundown of you, and because they haven't done this before, so kind of give a little biography of yourself, and just let people know where you come from, what's up, and how long you've been walking this way, and that kind of thing. Just it doesn't have to be anything real in-depth personally. Just
a brief introduction. My name is Elijah Elliott. I've been in this walk pretty much since birth. My grandfather was a very avid learner. He was seeking the truth in any way that he could. I remember him getting kicked out of a couple of churches because of it. But he raised his whole family according to Scripture, the best that he could. And he planted a seed in all of us, saying that, just keep on learning, keep on seeking the truth, and that's something I've always tried to do. And so, there's been times where I was teen years where I kind of fell away, but then came back, and now I have a child and another child on the way, and a lot of motivation to keep going. So that's the main reason why I'm here, I guess.
Well, that's awesome, because we all have the prodigal son kind of story. We kind of follow it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
We all have those kind of moments, but I think that's what makes us relatable to other folks. They can kind of, because it comes from all walks of life. We all have our story, and we all have our what's and whatnots. And with that being said, let's step off into what we were talking about, because this self-control, self-discipline thing is truly, when you actually start to looking into it, it really is a benchmark, I think, of what it is to walk this walk, as well as anything successfully in life, is purely this self-discipline, self-control, and how you're accountable for your own actions. And that's, that's crazy when you think about that, because you look at the world today and you try to figure out, the times that we are in, and that's truly what has become, is the total lack of self-accountability. It's somebody else's problem or somebody else's fault that I am the way I am, or I did what I did, or somebody else is holding me down, or whatever have you. And it's as we read through Scripture, and it's not only that, but when you start, because I've been doing that this week, and the last couple of weeks as I've been preparing to do something like this, but not only that, but preparing, but a transition in my own life is trying to be more accountable, not only to myself, but accountable to my family, but accountable to the one who created me as well, to Yahweh, because it all comes back to that. And once you do this, and you realize that when Yeshua was talking about seek first the reign of Elohim, and you're like, well, what does that truly mean? what is that? But it's a path, it's a walk, it's a continual path, trying to figure out. You're seeking the reign of Elohim by any means necessary. It's a quest for wisdom, is what he's telling you. Seek wisdom, and you will find, because wisdom. Yeah. In Proverbs, what is wisdom? That's the fear of Yahweh, is to understand. Yeah. That's the beginning of wisdom. And so once you break through and you start to seek wisdom, and you pray for wisdom and discernment, then he starts opening these different doors to allow us to be clean enough, I think, to do what must be done in the days ahead. And that's what I think. And And he brought it to my attention because I've been questioning for a long time, just trying to figure out, what can we do? We even read through a lot of Paul's writings, a lot of stuff where it says that no matter what you do, you can't be clean enough, which I think that's an insane statement. Because, many men were clean enough to be filled with the Ruach. I think he's misquoted in that you of yourself probably can never have your own laws, seeking after your own heart. Yes, you can never be righteous enough to enter into the kingdom. But when you seek Yahweh's righteousness and you follow his rules, his commands, then you find righteousness. Because that is the righteousness is seeking first him. So I know you've been looking into it a lot this week, and I know you had some stuff. And so go ahead and kick off with what you were talking about. And because I've got some stuff that I wanted to get into because it really hit home what we were talking about. Even last Shabbat of Revan, we were talking about when it's really, all set off, and it really struck a chord and really woke me up, I think.
Well, to add to a couple statements you just had, as far as the accountability thing, not only ourselves, but in our family, but also our brothers as well. I think that's something that's very important in any group of people or any congregation or any just group of brothers, I guess, if you will. It is really important for us to help each other out. It says over and over in Scripture, if you see your brother doing something wrong, point it out to him. Because I think that's something that it's really easy to slide away, and it's really easy to kind of trip off the path every now and then. And I think that it really helps to have other like-minded people all around you to kind of help each other out, and keep each other on the path. And also, you mentioned the lack of self-control in end days. It's pretty. I think it's pretty well explained in a 2 Timothy 3:1. It says, "But know this: in the last days, hard times shall come. For men shall be lovers of self, lovers of silver, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, thankless, wrongdoers, unloving, unforgiving, slanderers, and without self-control." And then it goes on. That's something that we're living in nowadays. If you go look at, you watch almost any movie, any TV show nowadays, and most of it, people are just doing things. They're not fully planning out things. They're not worrying about the consequences of their actions. It's just blatant fulfillment of self-desire is what the society nowadays, as a large majority, is gold on. That's pretty much the whole thing that the world is going towards now. And I think that we're pretty close to those end days, if not there already. That's kind of scary when you really get into it and find out what all's going on around you. But as far as self-control itself and self-discipline, I think that is the root of Torah in itself, because we all have a choice. We were all created with the ability to choose our own path. We can do whatever we want to do in this life, but what we don't have a choice in is the consequences that are thereof. For every action, there's an equal or opposite reaction. So that's something that even someone may argue, well, you may be able to get away with something, and you kind of dodge the consequence for that action. I disagree with that, because you always have to consider the judgment day. You always have to consider Yahweh's always watching us. We all, we will be judged upon the knowledge of our Elohim that he has on us. He knows everything of what we've done. It doesn't matter if the other people around us know. He knows what we did. So we'll be judged according to that. So there will always be consequences. But it's our choice of where we want to go. But it all boils back to self-control. It's something that, I guess you have to ask yourself, what is self-control? Self-control is the ability to control your own, not only your actions, but your thoughts. Say if you see something that is not righteous, we can use an example of maybe lust of the flesh or something like that. If a guy goes and sees a girl over there and she's wearing something that's pretty inappropriate, which is very, very common nowadays, it's the ability to to not only control your actions and divert your eyes away from that, but to be able to control your thoughts and control your mind of the whole matter. And it's not like, oh, I don't need to look at her. People around me are gonna see me looking at her. I'm thinking I'm a bad person. It's I don't need to look at her because that's wrong. I don't need to look at that because that is unrighteous. I don't need to do that. And then be able to control your thoughts to the point to where you know that that's wrong, and you are able to reject those thoughts completely and not dwell on something like that. And that can be applied to almost anything. Every single law in Torah requires self-discipline and self-control, because other than, that's really the root of it all.
That is the foundation to me, and it isn't, because we go back to, like I was saying a minute ago, if you go back to the beginning of Adam, the very first man. The only thing that we read that Yahweh told him is don't eat of that tree. Don't eat of the tree. Control yourself. Just don't eat that. All of this you're able to do. I give you everything. But don't eat on that tree. And what's Adam do? Well, Adam doesn't do it, but his wife runs over there, or Eve, or Hawa. She runs over there and grabs off of whatever the tree was and does whatever he told her not to do. And then, whereas Adam, instead of reproving her, saying, no, woman, what are you doing? He said, yeah, give me some of that too. And so that's lack of self-control at its very finest right there. Then we go, but we have examples of that all throughout the scriptures. And but it's not even just the scriptures, but all throughout the history of mankind we have that. Because every great man seems like a story of where he had an issue. Granted, there's a few. Yeshua didn't have his, and there's, other bits and pieces. But, our great patriarchs in scripture had issues with that. David had his issues with Bathsheba. Solomon had his issues with his women. It's just
Moshe and the anger issue with hitting the rock kind of thing. We discussed that a little bit. It's something that I think that we kind of agreed on that's probably the reason why he didn't get to go to the promised land, because he lost his temper and struck the rock when he was just told to speak to it. Yeah. He's told to he kind of took it overboard a little
lack of self-control,
and he just kind of lost it. Just one little blip, he just kind of lost it. Yep. And that's something that I think Yeshua is the perfect example of self-control, because who else that you know of anywhere, I don't care who you can think of, who do you know that could go through as much as he did, as many temptations as he did, and still maintain the self-control? There's the story of him going out in the wilderness, and then Hashatan tempting him. He tempted him in all sorts of ways. He told him that if he just bowed down to him, he could have everything. For all we know, that could have been true. He probably has that power to do so. He could probably, I'm sure that you got these higher ups out there, these, multi-billionaires, the 1% that rule the world kind of thing, that are most likely very wicked. They have everything that they want in this life. But as Scripture says, it says, the wicked have their reward. But this is pretty much it. They don't have anything after that. But our main goal is not really this life, but is to obtain a everlasting life with our Elohim, with our Creator. So that's another thing as well. You have to have a goal in mind, and you have to have the right motives in mind.
Yep.
Because even the wicked have self-control.
They have motives.
They have wicked motives. So you need to have your motives. You have to have your goals in order, your priorities in order, and be able to practice self-control to the point where it may even require denying what you think is yourself. If you think, or if you truly believe that you are something that is not righteous, it takes a large amount of self-control, and sometimes really hard to even grasp that amount of self-control, to be able to not only reject those thoughts, but be able to change who you are. Everyone has the capability to change who they are. We are the product of ourselves.
Absolutely.
So that's where self-control goes. Are you going to sit there and just live life doing things just to seek approval from those around you? Or do you have an actual goal, an actual purpose that you're working towards, that will require you to change who you are to match that goal, kind of thing? So there's discipline, I think, is the root of all things.
Absolutely. And because when we were talking about this because when you read, if we do what the Scriptures instruct us to do, what the Almighty Himself instructs us to do. I mean, when you read, if you start at the beginning of the book and you're reading through your Torah, and Yahweh Himself, one of His main commands in there, of course we have all His commands, but is to read and dwell on His words when you rise up and when you lie down. So if you're doing that, if you're studying His Torah, and it is in your heart, foremost in your mind, that is where your purpose, your discipline comes from. It is falling back on using that as your foundation. And so as you move forward through your day, as you move forward through your life, all of this makes, that's where your discipline is, your self-discipline is coming from, because then you have your foundation of which forth it comes. And then that gives you, where you're disciplined and why you're disciplined in this form. And so we have, evil and evil is just a contradiction of the good. I mean, because that's it. I mean, there are two sides to this coin. There's not a gray area as far as I'm concerned, and there's not in anywhere in the Bible or any readings of anybody's. You can't be half-hearted in your approach to anything, or you'll just doomed to failure. You'll just always be mediocrity at best. So if you're not single-minded focused on whatever your objective is, you'll fail. That's just the way it is. And so with this, and this, the Scripture happens to be the foundation of which, if that is your goal, is to be at one with the one who created you, or to try to find ultimate peace, and that's, of course, the same end. And so as we get to that, and we're pushing forward, and we're talking about, self-discipline, and because I think, that's how we I find ourselves getting into a lot of places and holes and stuff that we don't really know how to dig our way out of, and we start falling down into trenches, and we start getting into, I don't know, we're just not actively, we're actively doing something, but when we don't have our goals, and we're not pushing towards the things that are important to us, we kind of fall away, and we get into a funk mode, and we start looking toward other things to help us kind of to hide our emotions and to hide who we are, and so some of us turn to drugs or alcohol or whatever it is. You're just hiding things, and I guess to the self-control thing, and that's what really hit me the other day when we were talking about it, is using external things to subdue whatever issues that you have in order to, I don't know, to hide them and to just not have to deal with it. It's to not to have to control yourself. And whether it's you have a pornography addiction, or you're drugs, or there's been some traumatic event that happened to you, and you're using something food or whatever it is. You're using something to hide it, like drugs or alcohol. So you never have to confront whatever it is that's bothering you. You just don't never have to take control of that issue, and it's easy for a lot of people, because dealing with that stuff sometimes is a pretty hard thing to do. And so, but it's not till you come full circle with yourself and truly understand that, I have to own up to this. I have to take responsibility for this, and I can control this. I mean, whether it's an anger issue, or because it all stems to that. I mean, if something has happened to you, a traumatic thing, you're either angry about it or you're bitter about there's some reason that you're angry at something, or at yourself, or at a parent or friend or wife, spouse, whatever it is. And so and I think that until you can control your emotions, I mean, anger is a natural expression.
Yeah, as with any emotion, but it takes the appropriate self-control to know when to express those, and how to express those, and what direction to express those.
Right.
So, I mean, just because old Joe Schmo cuts you off in the middle of the road don't mean you need to get all angry and mad and start, cutting him off and flipping the bird kind of thing, or something like that. I mean, it's,
shooting at him.
Yeah, for all we know, dude might be on the way to the hospital. I don't know. I mean, you have to have enough self-control to be able to, pull the reins on yourself, and, just be like, hey, look, slow down, think about this. Is it really worth it?
Yep.
I mean, I had a situation recently that's kind of gave me the knock in the back of the head, if you will. I kind of lost my temper over something, and I'm sure that people can relate. When you lose your temper, you tend to not think straight. You tend to stub your toe, or bump your elbow, or just do something stupid like that it makes it worse. it just compounds on the anger, and it just makes it to where you just end up turning into a blind rage, and you're not really even paying attention to your surroundings. I had an issue where I had a brand new laptop in my backpack, and I was getting on the phone and really, really, really upset beyond even, just no reason really for it. I mean, there was a reason, but no logical reason for it. There was nothing that directly affected me that I knew of yet, but it was something that could potentially directly affect me, and it was something that was more like a fear and a frustration towards this person, and I let that anger, and I lost the self-control with myself to the point where I wasn't paying attention to what I did with my laptop and what I did with my backpack the laptop was in, and ended up getting ran over by a car. So that was like, hey, dude,
ding, ding, ding,
ding, ding, ding. Maybe you should kind of get a grasp on yourself and really think about, what's going on, the importance of the issue. Is it worth it? Is it something that is righteous? No, it wasn't righteous. Nothing about it was righteous at all. And that's something that it was a big wake up call for me, because I'm in IT. I have to have some sort of ability to work remotely. So that laptop was a very important piece of equipment for me, and I let myself get out of control of my own emotions to the point where I was not properly taking care of my own belongings, and that's something that it was just a stupid act on my part. And this goes back to Scripture says, this, if you're not seeking wisdom, you're basically stupid. I mean, you're
so, you're just self-serving. I mean,
exactly.
And there's the end to self-serviveness is, it's pretty much wickedness. Because, I mean, when you get a second, when you look up that Aleister Crowley quote, the one where he talks about, I can't think of what it's called. I would look at mine, but my phone's kind of in this way.
It is. I don't have access to the internet right now. So.
Well, that sucks. Well, never mind. Well, I'll post it in the description of the video. How's that? And but anyway, it has to do with the quest for oneself. You are the highest being, and there's no reason to serve anything else, and no reason to do anything else other than just satisfy your own carnal lust, basically. And that's the interesting thing is when you read Ecclesiastes and Solomon, that's basically what he's talking about. He's talked about, I have indulged in every form of anything I could comprehend. I did it to see, and Solomon is supposed to be the wisest man that's ever existed, and so, well, up until a point, but him searching those things out, he still came to the conclusion that there's only one path that leads to the light, and every other path leads to darkness, and he couldn't say it any better. I don't think it's because he tried everything. I mean, he even delved off into homosexuality. He says in Ecclesiastes, it says that, which is strange. But
I mean, that's
Shlomo was a strange duck.
It's kind of where we get nowadays. I mean, nowadays, if you look at what fuels society itself, I mean, I can't think of anything I can point out that's righteous. I mean, nowadays, to touch on homosexuality kind of thing, that is pretty much just because a dude thinks that he can't find a proper mate of the opposite gender, or whatever the reason being, he wants to be recognized, or he wants to, the attention of others, or if he has, had a dysfunctional childhood, or whatever the scenario. I know that there's others out there, but it doesn't mean that you can just do whatever you want to seek the attention of others. I mean, it doesn't mean that you can go against your natural biological nature as a human being just to seek attention from others.
Well, you're just seeking self-pleasure.
Exactly. I mean, it's something goes with that. And the same with whoring around. Same with doing, nowadays it's I mean, really, if you want to just get down to it, nowadays whoring is rampant. I mean, nowadays there's almost they're phasing out monogamous relationships. They're phasing out the marriage thing. It's now I can hook up with anybody I want to, and I ain't gonna suffer the consequences because I can do whatever I want, kind of thing. It's all self-pleasure. And now you have all these guys out here that don't know how to be men because they weren't raised that way. They weren't raised to understand self-control. They weren't raised to even try to practice it. They weren't raised thinking that was even a priority. They think that they can go out here and impregnate all these women and hightail it, do whatever they want. And now you have all these fatherless children out here.
Illegitimate children. Right?
Yeah, you have all these women out here that are having to work 2 jobs and just to support a family that they shouldn't have to be doing that for. I mean, there's the point where, like, I have family members that do the same thing. Like, you know, they go off and they produce a child and then they go off and do their own thing. Well, look, that is neglect of your own responsibilities. That is something that, if you have self-control, you would recognize that, look, I need to get what's right. I need to figure out and work on this relationship with this person that I just created, another human being. I need to take the responsibility to do something that I don't really want to do. Maybe you didn't like her that much. Maybe it was something that it was an accidental thing. Well, still, it's a responsibility that you have to take, and it's something that you have to be able to control yourself to the point where you can go against what your own desires are for the purpose of righteousness, for the purpose of the well-being of others.
Yeah. I agree with that, but I mean, it's self-control. You don't find yourself in that position to begin with. You know what I mean? If you're practicing true self-control, I mean, and that gets back to what you were talking about, maybe it was last night, where it's thinking about the consequences of your actions before you, it's like thinking before you talk. It's make sure that your mouth and your brain are go in the same direction, you know, because a lot of people just speak before they think. And it puts you in a hole quick, and it's, even if you're not intentionally doing that, and I've done that a few times, you know, where you say something and then a few minutes later you actually start contemplating what it is you just said, and you're like, man, I probably should have said that.
Or shit, they do things before they think.
Oh yeah,
kind of the same scenario.
Better. Yeah. So. That's a big one. But self-control truly is the foundation of everything. Pretty much everything, because I was, you know, like I said, I was doing a whole bunch of research on it this week, trying to figure out, you know, a good angle to come at with self-discipline and self-control, because they are one and the same. And everything that you do, everything you search on the internet or YouTube or any of this stuff, it all comes back to, you know, and it's all the studies that, you know, every business journal, every self-help, all of them. That's the main thing is self-discipline, it's self-control, it's controlling yourself. It's getting, you know, the discipline is getting out of bed when you don't want to. It's doing, like you're on an exercise program. It's getting up and doing it no matter what. It's just, you get up and do it. There's no, you know, even if it's cold, windy, rainy, whatever, you just get up and go do it. It doesn't matter. Those are all extenuating circumstances that are put there to try to keep you from achieving your goals. Yep. And I fail in that department sometimes, as you know, as far as setting goals for yourself, because if you don't ever establish your goals, then you don't really need self-discipline to do anything. Because if you don't have a goal to achieve or something to achieve, what are you doing? You're just going through the motions. There's no reason to have discipline. There's no reason to get up early in the morning to go exercise if you don't have a goal in mind to do. You're just like, well, I don't feel like getting up and going outside, so well, I'm not going to get up and go outside. There's no repercussion to the action. But if you have a goal set and you have a timeline set for your goal, and you're holding yourself accountable to that, and you get to June 1st and you still haven't lost the 10 pounds that you said you're going to lose in April, you're kind of like, it's, when you start holding yourself accountable, it's amazing the results that you can attain. And so goal setting is an important part of your task, and that comes with purpose, your self-purpose, trying to figure out what your purpose is, your purpose in life, whether it's, some people's is to provide for their family, or some people it is to, seek the reign of Elohim, or some people's is whatever their goal in life is. That's what you establish your path. You establish your goals, and then you use your self-discipline, self-control to get to those means. But all those things are important, and we got to figure. And that's, if you just aimlessly running through life, you can't get to the goal that you have established. And that's what we're trying to do here, is we're trying to do it from a biblical perspective, as far as trying to do what's right in the eyes of the one who created us, so that we may, again, because he tells us in the end of days, you will seek my face again. You will turn back and walk in my ways, and I again will remember the covenant I had with you, and I will bring you back from the four corners of the earth, and you will come and be in my presence again. And so that's in order And to me, it all gets back to that, because it's, in order for that to happen, we have to start over again with the Torah. You get back to the foundation. You have to reestablish what the foundation is, and that's the instructions or the teachings of the Almighty Himself. These are, that's what He tells us. I have established these, and these are how you will live. This is life. This is the foundation. If you walk this way, I will give you life, and I will not turn away from you. I will be with you always if you'll do these things. And that is where, my goals and stuff are starting to form around, is that. I mean, because that's how we ended up on this self-control thing, is trying to figure out how to get to that point. Because, you can get the foundation of the Torah and understand what He's saying, even to the measure of His intent. It's not exactly what He has written, but you understand His intention of why He has these things and why He tells us this, do this, but don't do that. There's a reason He's telling us, and it's not just because He wants to be a tyrant. He's because this is life. This is life for you. This is good for you. This is good for you and your children after you. It's not that He's trying to be anyway. But so once you understand that, you have your foundation, then you set your goals, and then you start. And it's self-discipline. And I think that's what Yeshua showed us most of anything. Because He established, what He wanted to be and where He wanted to be when this ended up. And I don't know if He had premonitions of knowing. He did, apparently, because he kept telling them, this is the day that He's offered up. This is the day He's offered up. So He knew it was coming, and He did have that foreshadow, as we do too now. We have the same foreshadow, because you and I can sit here and we talk about this stuff, and we see the end of the age coming. We see it's coming. It's here. It's coming. We see all of the different things that you read through in Revelations and Enoch's and all the Isaiahs and all these stories and Jeremiah's, Ezekiel's, all the prophets that talk about the end of days, what they'll look like. And we see it when you look out the mirror, when you look out the window, when you walk and interact with people in day-to-day life, and you flip on the news especially, because it's freaking ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's freaking insane. People now are going and paying a plastic surgeon to turn them into elves. You see that? Dude paid $20,000 to look like an elf. I'm like,
not just
what
that,
the hell's wrong with
the
these
different
people?
Other animals and other
races. They're just mixing them. Well, not races, but they're turning themselves into it. They don't want to be a man or a woman. They don't identify. I'm like, what? The Bible tells you what to do with them kind of folks.
A couple areas we
strange
have discussed as far as self-control, or areas that require self-control. I think is one we kind of touched on emotions. That one kind of already covered that, and then the drugs and alcohol, and another one as far as keeping Torah, keeping Shabbat. How easy is it to watch a TV show or play a video game or do something that's not really keeping the seventh day set apart. I believe keeping it set apart is literally you have 6 days that you do whatever you desire, whatever you desire within Torah, as far as work, as far as getting things done. And then you have that seventh day you're supposed to have completely separate. You're supposed to have that completely separate for either worship or something to further your development in righteousness. Either yours
relationship
or others.
With Him.
Something,
You're fostering the relationship with Him. Absolutely.
That's something that I've been guilty of in the past. I'd catch myself sitting there surfing Facebook kind of thing and just posting things, and oh, that's funny, and post something on there, and then I'm not really thinking about it. But all my brothers and sisters out there, they're seeing the same thing I'm posting. They're seeing that I'm posting on Shabbat, and I may not even notice who is this person. Who posted that? What are the comments up above? What are the comments below? They could be saying some very inappropriate things that I myself wouldn't even allow. I wouldn't say that, but just because I didn't have the control or the self-discipline to be able to, hey, look, maybe I shouldn't even be looking at this on the Sabbath. Or if I am, maybe I should be more careful about what I'm allowing myself to be subjected to. And what am I allowing my image to be on this social media thing, because they only see what you post. So that in a sense is becoming what in a sense is going to affect how they think of you, because that is a product of yourself. You're producing that out there. It doesn't matter if you're sharing somebody else's comment. As soon as you share it, it is now a product of you. So that's something we got to be careful of as well. And then also there's the change gears a little bit, the gossip thing I put on here. It says regarding talking about other people.
Yeah.
What benefit does talking about someone else or their flaws or creating a bad image of somebody else to somebody else, what benefit does that bring? Nothing. I mean, really, we're supposed to, if we're going to talk about someone, we need to talk about it in a constructive manner with the intent to bring that to them so that we can help them. But it's really easy to say, old dude over there, he's doing this and this and this and this, and it kind of makes us feel better about ourselves. But that's the whole purpose of that unrighteous gossip, I think, is what you could call it.
Yeah, I think so. I agree with you with that one, man, because that one is, I don't think there's a place for it, because, you always get those commands talking about that stuff. Paul talks a lot about loose lips and running your mouth. Yeah. Just talking about people to talk about them. And I don't know, I think you do. I think it is a lot of times people do that to boost their own self-image. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, at least I'm not doing what old so-and-so is doing. Yeah. And that's why. You don't need to work on yourself. That gets back to self-control and self-discipline. If you are doing what you need to do and your foundation is Torah, you have nothing else to. It gets back to the unreprovable man that you were talking about yesterday in Titus. That to me is the goal, is to be an unreprovable man. It's not because I'm perfect, but because I purposefully set forth every day to walk the way that Yahweh commands us to, and that in and of itself, if you're doing that, you are an unreprovable man, because you are not falling by the wayside. You're staying on the path that He has established for us. And He said, if you stay on this path, it leads to life. It's the narrow gate. It always gets back to that. And so, that's the important thing. And it's with this, we're trying to just get you thinking about self-discipline and thinking about being accountable for your own actions, because in the end we are ultimately accountable for only us. And Judgment Day, you're not going to be able to take a lawyer up there with you, or you're going to have your friends or anybody. It's you standing there by yourself, and He says, explain yourself.
Pretty much. How well will be? There's that fly again. How well will you be able to explain yourself? What is there was a question that a guy asked to me, and it's kind of a vague question, but it got me thinking, is how do you justify yourself before Elohim? And that's, going dead.
Yeah. Losing them.
But, well, how do you justify yourself before Elohim? And I really, it's kind of hard to answer, because it's justify yourself in what area? Well, all areas. Well, what covers all areas? What covers every aspect of your life, every single area of your life that could justify yourself to Elohim? Well, my answer to that was, if it is of Elohim, if it is of His command, of His rule, of His righteousness, what He gave us to follow, then that in itself is justification of Elohim, because He made it, He knows that it's good.
That needs no justification.
Exactly. Exactly. So how can we justify ourselves to Elohim? I think that's whether or not we choose to live that way, whether or not we control ourselves whenever the temptation arises, whether or not we are striving to obtain that perfection, to obtain that lifestyle that Yeshua Himself lived and showed us how to live. Mm-hmm. So that to me is really, if you want to get down to it, the purpose of life. That is the quote unanswerable question.
Yeah, I agree with that completely, because that is in. It's because Yeshua talks about well done, my faithful servant. That's the. At the end of it, that's what you want to hear. You don't want to hear, depart from me, you worker of iniquity. And that is, damn that.
To kind of touch on the getting the Ruach thing, we kind of talked about that a little bit too. We hear about all these warriors, all these great men in Scripture that were able to do these amazing feats. As far as like spreading the seas. A lot of these warriors that went up there and they were jumping over walls that were, I forget what, 40 cubits tall or something like that. Yeah. It's insane heights, and they were jumping over these things. They were taking down
I want to do a whole thing on that, because I think that there's so much to that and I think that gets back to, and I didn't mean to cut you off with it, but I want to do a whole focus on that, because that comes from a different mindset and a different perspective than most people look into this. And I think that's, once you approach it from that mindset, I think it really opens all of this up and gives it not validating it, but it gives it an understanding and a purpose that you don't get from just a truly purely Christian mindset. Because a truly Christian mindset is the whole turn the other cheek, the whole forgive everybody for everything, and just love, peace, and happiness. And and to me, that's a false paradigm. It's something that I think it's part of this matrix thing that they've tried to plug everybody into, so you never question anything. It truly is.
Pretty much that whole loving everybody else, that thing I've seen firsthand, that is enabling wickedness.
Absolutely does. And so, that is one of the topics that I really want to talk about, because that was truly as near and dear to me, because I've spent a lot of time thinking about that, because I think the Almighty has put that path in front of us. I think that's the ultimate and the level of understanding. And I think that comes from, like we were talking about, having a firm foundation in Torah and understanding truly not just what he's saying, but his intent. Because I think that's truly is the important part, is understanding his intention. Because we understand what he's written, but why did he intend that? I mean, what was the whole purpose of it from the beginning? And so, and it is to be, priests and kings, to be judges of nations, and that's his reason that he created Adam, and his reason he created Israel is to judge the nations, to hold them to his standard. And without a firm foundation and understanding the law, you can't judge the law. So,
and just going back to kind of touch back on what I was saying earlier, is as far as obtaining the Ruach, or having having him put, or having being able to get the Spirit of Elohim put on you, something like that. If that entails any kind of, probably for lack of a better term, special abilities of some kind. I mean, if that entails, a extraordinary strength of some kind, what makes us think that we're worthy of such things if we can't control ourselves? If we can't control our own rage, our own emotions to the fullest extent, why do we think that we would be able to control something that would give us the ability to split the seas, to move mountains, to heal people,
to scream loud enough to kill everybody around you? You read the stories that's in there. I mean, or the Samson story. I mean, it's the amazing things he did, and the Joshua's, and Yahweh tells us in the blessings, one of you will put 100 to flight, two of you will put 1,000 to flight. I mean, it's just, how do you do that other than there's some special ability that comes upon you once you have transformed? I truly believe it's at a pure foundation of his instructions matched with pure self-control. I think once you've mastered those things, and I think that you are a vessel that the Ruach can inhabit. Because then you are clean enough that you can present yourself before Yahweh, and there's no blemish. There's no, and that's because he tells them, he gives when he's going through Torah, and that's why it's so critically important that you understand the Torah, and you read and you dwell in that, and you understand, because he tells us that he cannot dwell in an unclean place. So he tells the Israelites, especially the war camp, he says, do not. He gives them directions. Says, you go outside of the camp to relieve yourself, to use the bathroom and stuff, because don't bring that uncleanliness in the camp, because I cannot dwell with you if you do that.
Not just that, but your body as well.
Yeah, so it's removing the uncleanliness, and where do you find the definition for all of that is in the Torah, that he gives us instructions on how to be inhabitable by him, or to be in his presence and be habitable by the Ruach. That's the conclusions I've come to with this. So.
Yeah, I mean, if you're out here eating all these unhealthy foods, and you're out here eating food that is considered an abomination, that stuff is in you. It is becoming a part of you. So therefore, you are making your body an abomination. You're making your physical being uninhabitable by anything that he decides to, bestow upon people. Yeah. So that's something that
you won't be able to. And I truly believe, and I don't mean to cut you off, and I truly believe that the mark that they come and put on the heads of the peoples is the Ruach. Because he comes and he says, was this person capable of obtaining the Ruach? And if they are, they fill them with it. And he moves to the next one. Is this person? No. they're not part of it. So either they're annihilated there instantly. If they claim to be a child of Yahweh and are not clean, the Ruach will come into them, and basically I think it will explode because it can't inhabit in there. And it moves on to the next one. Oh, I can dwell here. This one's clean. Moves on to the next one. This one says it can. It moves on to the next one. It just
I mean, so
don't
say make sure your actions match your words.
That's right, and your meanings. And so
But another thing to add on to it, we are supposed to be a light to other people. We are supposed to be examples to other people that are around us, of people that may not know better, may not be in a situation to where they have been provided the truth or provided a different door, I guess, if you will. I mean, there's a lot of people in the church that they're sincere. They really are sincere, but the problem is they're being fed all this stuff, the Christianity mindset, and they've been convinced that they're doing okay. They're doing the right thing. Well, I think that if we just live according to the way that we're supposed to, if we practice that amount of self-control, that amount of discipline, I'm sure any man can understand that when you were a young boy, you, for some reason, were always drawn to somebody that had a sense of power or a sense of control over something. And I think that's something that's kind of like a psychological thing. If we practice self-control and we show that I have control over myself, and I know that if some temptation is going to come up here and do something, I have the power over myself to deny that and not be swayed easily by something some outside force like that. That is attractive for other people. Other people naturally just respect that. They naturally desire that type of recognition. So that's something as well. I mean, if we practice what we preach, if you will, then it will just naturally unfold, and we will naturally, unintentionally be lights to others. And it also, talking about the light again, it talks about the lamp of the eye is the light of the eye. The light of the eye is the light of the body, and how if that light is dark, how great is the darkness of the body. I think that talks about your thoughts, your internal thoughts.
Absolutely.
Because if I walk righteously, if I do righteously, it's the other side of the coin. But inside of my mind, I have all these wicked thoughts, or I have these wicked desires or something, and am not able to control that, or able to I guess, banish that from myself and change my own personality, change my own internal thoughts, then that itself is dangerous as well. Because even though you're doing the right thing, you're living the right way, you're still wicked on the inside. So that's something that we got to be careful with as well. So it's not only mastering the outside, but the inside, the entirety of yourself. So that's something that's really hard to do, but it is obtainable. I know it's obtainable because it's been done in the past,
and we'll do it again.
Yeah.
I have full confidence that even in myself that I can do that if I put forth the effort, because he tells me that I can. He says it's not too hard. It's not too hard. You can do it. If he says it's not too hard, you can do it. I can do it. If anybody else has ever done it, then I can do it. I know I can because he did it, or whomever did it. I mean, everybody wants to say that Yeshua was not a man. He was born of a woman the same as I was. Granted, his father was Yahweh, but so was mine in the grand scheme of things.
Pretty much.
And so, I think that is the example that he established for us, is that, I am a man the same as you. I bleed just like you do. Yeah. So whatever, I am tempted by the same things that tempt you, but I choose to be self-control. I choose to exert self-control to the point that nothing can get to me. So,
to the point of death.
Nothing can get
to the point where he knew what was going to happen.
Absolutely.
Even to the point where he prayed. He went out and prayed. He says, "Look, please let this cup pass me, but if it be your will, let it be done."
That's right.
So, I mean, he knew he had enough self-control that he allowed the most horrific form of torture.
Because any time during that, he could have said,
he said himself, he's like, "Do you not think that I could bring down legions of angels to do my bidding down here?" He could have easily, without even lifting a finger, have just utterly destroyed that entire place.
Yep.
And that's something that
and he never
had enough self-control because he had a purpose.
And he could have quit at any time. He could have said, I quit. He said, yes, you're all right. I am a phony. I'm fake. And I'm not any of these things that I said I was. Anytime, and they would have stopped, and that would have been the end of it.
Yep.
But he didn't. He chose to continue on the path because he knew what the objective was. He knew what the end goal was, and he was single-minded in his focus and driven far and above probably any man that's ever existed. So he is the ultimate example of what to do. But yeah, I think with that, man, we've run pretty good time. So we'll probably cease it here, and we'll pick up again, and we'll continue this topic because there's a lot of different directions we want to go with it, and but hopefully this will give you an overview of what we're talking about with this self-control, because this is critical. I think it's truly, truly critical that we get a handle on our own self, basically. Because truly, how do you expect great things and great power to be bestowed upon you if you can't even control what He's given you here? So.
Yeah.
And everybody said, it's the same thing with it is the talents, the story of the talents that Yeshua talks about. If I give you, what I've given you, you've squandered away and haven't done anything with it. Whereas the ones who did things with what He's given them, I will give you greater than that. So that is it in a nutshell to me. So, with that said, we appreciate y'all coming. You got any last things you want to say before we get out from this one? And we'll start for another one here pretty quick. And hopefully we'll do this pretty regularly, and we'll go through this, and because it has been really laying heavy on both of us to do something and get back in front of y'all and just trying to. It's like I told him yesterday, and I don't mean to run long. It's this thing is I'm not trying to lead anybody to Yahweh's. All I want to do is point the door out to you. Just there's the door. Go. You walk over and open up that door and look into it. And because you have to seek this. This doesn't seek you. I mean, you can't drag somebody to the Torah because we've tried. Golly, if I tried, it don't work.
That old saying I like to add on to it is you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Well, you can force him and drown him, but then you just have a dead horse.
You got a dead horse.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of like. So I think as far as the self-control thing goes, whose desire are we trying to fulfill? Is it ours, our fleshly desires, or is it Elohim's desires? I mean, Yeshua did Elohim's desire. He lived to fulfill Yahweh's goal. Yep. And I think that's something that the root of self-control is being able to deny your own fleshly desires, your own self to a sense, or not necessarily deny it, but be able to be in control of yourself to the point where you can change your own desires and control your own desires to match and to mirror that of Elohim.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the main thing. I mean,
absolutely. And I think then in the next one we'll get into talk about, the goals as far as, what that looks like as far as, because I think that, because Yahweh does a lot when He tells Israel, this is what you're supposed to be. This is what you're set apart nation. You will be priests and kings. And so in order to be priests and kings for Yahweh, these are what you have to do. And so that gets the self-control thing back to deny the earthly pleasures to get back to be priests and kings and judges of nations. And, some people don't want to do that, which is fine. Go do something else. But if you want to be priests and kings, a reflection of Yahweh Himself, and to be rulers of nations, because that's what our end goal is to be. And so I think that's where we're at. So you got anything else?
I think that's it for now.
All right. Thank y'all for watching, and we'll see y'all again very soon.
Yep.